Let's return to our main story, that interview with the director of the CIA. Fascinating in terms of his assessment of foreign policy under Donald Trump and some of the lines of advice he gave about the Iran deal, about relations with Russia, and also the sort of language that the new team will actually use. Let's discuss all of this. I'm joined by the Conservative security strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's the author of the best-selling book, Defeating Jihad. He's also the national security editor for Breitbart News. And also in Washington is Sanam Anderlini. She's the executive director of the International Civil Society Action Network. Thanks, both of you, for being here with us. Sebastian Gorka, to you, first of all, what do you think of what the director has been saying?
I'm disappointed. I know he's carried President Obama's water for years now, but I think he hasn't followed the protocol of transition. The Obama administration is in its lame duck period. It's 50 days out from having to leave their offices. The president-elect Donald Trump has chosen his CIA director, Representative Pompeo. He's chosen his national security advisor, Lieutenant General Mike Flynn. It's not the job of Mr. Brennan to tell President-elect Trump what to do. And in fact, his statements about the Iran deal are wholly fallacious. So I'm really disappointed in Mr. Brennan.
Wholly fallacious. Sanam, I saw you nodding and shaking your head. He's wrong, it's nonsense, or a timely warning. Which is it?
Well, I think the question is, if we go back to Mr. Trump's own words in September of this year, when he said, you know, we need more diplomacy and less destruction. And the Iran deal is precisely that. It was a feat of diplomacy after years and years of failed sanctions policies and a situation that was actually getting, you know, us closer to war. And the Iran deal has been a solution that's out there. And I think the big question for the new administration is, do they want more chaos or less chaos in the Middle East? Because if they want more chaos, then this would be the time to rip up the deal and in fact, renege on the commitments that the U.S. has and actually send a very negative signal to the world about what it means to deal with the U.S.
But there are many people there in the U.S., many Republicans, who think this is a bad deal. Convince Dr. Gorka that this is the right deal, both for America and the rest of the world.
Well, you have, you know, it was Iran plus the world. It wasn't just the U.S. and Iran. It was the Iran plus the world, and it went to Congress, and it has been accepted by everybody. The question is whether we're going to actually build on the deal, and the alternative, frankly, is if you're going to rip it up, what's the next step? What are you going to do? As I said, the previous decades that we've had really haven't really gotten us anywhere positive.
Sebastian,
so
you're shaking your head. Sanam was asking the question, if it's not this deal, what is your solution? What is your solution?
Yeah, I'll ignore the straw man arguments that it's this deal or war. That is so absurd, it's not even worth addressing. The fact is that JCPOA is not a deal. It is a Potemkin village. Why? Because it addressed Iranian nuclear capabilities, didn't stop them, it just delayed them. And the worst thing of all is it didn't mention and completely disconnected nuclear capability for Tehran from what Iran is doing in the region as a destabilizing actor, from Yemen and the Houthis right through to Iraq and Syria. It's an Alice in Wonderland piece of paper that will actually bring greater instability because our Sunni allies don't trust the West anymore.
You can't see her, but Sanam's laughing at you. Tell me why.
Well, first of all, you know, are you talking about Sunni allies or the U.S.'s Wahhabi and Salafi allies? Because I think we should make a distinction.
Like Jordan.
No,
like Jordan.
I see. And then,
like
meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has said keep the deal. Egypt is talking to Iran. They're all actually involved in some sort of way, and the process has been moving forward. And look. People may not like it. I don't think Iran particularly likes it either. But this is the nature of diplomacy. It's step by step moving forward. And the fact is that if you want to rip it up, where are you going to go? You say war is a straw man. We had sanctions. Under the sanctions regime, we had the nuclear program in Iran building up. So it seems a little bit absurd to say we don't want this, but actually not give an alternative that's constructive.
Oh, we have an alternative.
Looking at the region. Look, I'd be curious to see what your alternative is, because what is sanctions?
Pause there
sanctions didn't work.
Pause there and let him answer it.
We have to address Iran as an anti-status quo actor in the whole region. We have to reassess our policies, whether it's sanctions or other actions, and we have to understand that it's not just about nuclear acquisition on a state dedicated to the destruction of other countries. It's what they are doing right now in the Middle East.
Okay, listen, plenty more territory to get through. Let me quickly ask you about the director's comments about Russia and being wary of any promises from Russia. Is that the correct advice, Doctor?
Remember, Vladimir Putin is a former KGB colonel. He is a dinosaur of the Cold War. He said the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the greatest geostrategic catastrophe in his lifetime. So yes, you need to go into any talks with Vladimir Putin with your eyes wide open, and the President-elect Donald Trump understands that.
Sanam?
I want to just push back here. So Dr. Gorka talks about sanctions or other measures. What does that mean? What we've seen in the region is that there's plenty of chaos. We have ISIS, Wahhabi, Salafi movements all over the place. You have one country which is, clearly there are problems, I'm not saying that there aren't, but it's actually a bulwark on the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And Pakistan is the country where we have nuclear weapons and we have the Wahhabis. So I'm just curious about what is it that he's suggesting you want to do with a country that is a regional power, has always been a regional power, has a population of 70 million who are educated, moderate, and want things to evolve slowly. Engagement is the way to go. So I'm just curious about what his alternatives are.
My alternative is to live in reality, and the idea that a theocracy that is the major sponsor of international terrorism is a bulwark against anything is absolutely absurd.
Let me just drag you both to one final area, because it's an important area. The director was cautioning the sort of language the new team will use. He was asked about Michael Flynn's comments about world war on Islamist militants, and also his tweet, the fear of Muslims is rational. That's what he tweeted back in February. Does he have to be more, does the whole team have to be more careful in the language used? Is the director right?
There's always a difference between campaign rhetoric and actual policy verbiage. But I can assure you, as somebody who meets with General Flynn regularly, everything will change January 20th. The adults will be in charge, and there will be a new sheriff in the White House. And it will be explicitly a war against radical Islamic terrorism. The president has committed himself to that in his Pennsylvania speeches, in his national security speech from Jonestown. That will be the reality. There's not going to be any more political correctness or censorship about who the enemy is and the ideology
Sanam,
they follow.
final word from you. No more political correctness. You just say it how it is.
First of all, if you want to name it as it is, let's not call it Islam, because that's actually brushing billions of people with the. You said radical Islamists. Call them Salafis and Wahhabis. We know where the sources of this come from, and they are our allies. So I'm curious about what your policies are vis-a-vis those close allies of the United States. Secondly, it's this Wizard of Oz-ery that's going on. We said something in the campaign. In January, we're going to suddenly unveil something different. And it's consistently telling us what they're against, as opposed to actually what are they for. What is it that they're going to be presenting as a positive alternative that is peaceful?
Yep.
That's the question.
Listen,
positive, peaceful
alternative. We have completely run out of time. I wish we had more time, but Naraghi-Anderlini and Sebastian Gorka, thank you so much for joining us there, both from Washington. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.